Okay, so today our topic is on the heart failure. Although all the aspects will not be discussed in one lecture, today we are mainly going to discuss about the definition, the pathophysiology, the compensatory mechanisms, and the types of heart failure. Next class, we shall talk about the features, clinical features and investigations. And then the next class, we shall talk about the management of heart failure. So let us see what is heart failure. So heart failure or cardiac failure, this is a state in which, at the normal filling pressures, the venous return, okay, so, it comes from the veins, okay, so, and it comes first in the right atrium, then, right ventricle, then from the pulmonary arteries, then into the left atrium, left ventricle. So this, even at the normal filling pressures, the heart is not able to maintain an adequate cardiac output. When the left ventricle, it contracts, the blood is pushed into the aorta, and from the aorta, okay, so it is pumped to the rest others, other peripheral tissues. So this cardiac output, so it's not able to maintain an adequate cardiac output. It is not able to meet the metabolic demands of the tissues. It's not able to meet the metabolic demands of the peripheral tissues. Okay. So this is what is called as heart failure. In heart failure, it is mainly characterized by a decrease in cardiac output. Again, there is an exception to this. Exception is in high output heart failure. In the case of the high output cardiac failure, so there is no decrease in the cardiac output. Rather, the cardiac output is absolutely normal. But what happens is that the demands of the peripheral tissues that increases. This you can mainly find in conditions like thyrotoxicosis, or in case of anemia. So those patients, they have high output heart failure in which the cardiac output is normal, but what happens is that the metabolic demands of the peripheral tissues increases. Okay, so but mainly it is characterized by a decrease in the cardiac output. Okay, so what does the cardiac output depends upon? If you know, it's a function of three things. Cardiac output mainly depends upon the preload, afterload, and the myocardial contractility. I think all of you must be knowing about what is preload and what is afterload. Okay, so and myocardial contractility. What is preload? Preload, the other term which is used for preload, it is also called as left ventricular end diastolic pressure. So the pressure in the ventricles at the end of the diastole. So by the time the ventricles, the left ventricle gets filled up, okay, so and that time during the diastole, the filling of the ventricles takes place. So at that time, at the end of the diastole, when the left ventricle is filled up, what is the pressure inside it? Okay, so that is the left ventricular end diastolic pressure. Also called as the preload. What is afterload? Afterload is the pressure with which this ventricle has to pump the blood into the aorta. So indirectly, it is also called as the aortic pressure. Okay, the pressure inside the aorta, the pressure with which the left ventricle has to pump the blood into the aorta. Okay, so afterload and myocardial contractility. So initially what happens is that, as you can see, the cardiac output is decreasing. So the body will also try to compensate for this. The body will see that the peripheral tissues are not, they're not receiving sufficient amount of blood. They're not receiving sufficient amount of oxygen. So now the body will also do some compensatory mechanisms to compensate this situation. So what our body will do is that our body will activate the RAS, renin angiotensin aldosterone system, and our body is also going to activate the sympathetic system. There will be sympathetic overactivity, and there will be the activation of RAS. And as a result of this activation of RAS, what happens is that, the vessels, they get, there is constriction of the vessels, and the preload, it is going to increase, the venous return. Okay, so the venous return to the heart, okay, so that is going to increase. So what will happen if the preload will increase? How will it affect the cardiac output? What will happen if the ventricles, if they get filled up more, if there is, increased filling of the ventricles? So how does the heart try to do this? How does the heart, that you understood? Okay, so but why by increasing the preload, the myocardial contractility is going to increase? Because if you do remember, from your physio classes, you had studied about this law called as Frank-Starling's law. What is Frank-Starling law? Frank-Starling law. So, with, the myocardial cell. Okay, so when the cell, okay, so that is going to, okay. So what does the Frank-Starling law states? The Frank-Starling law states that this myocardial cell, the stretch in the myocardial cell, if this increases, then the contractility is also going to increase. If you getting me? So like if what happens is that it states that if the left ventricular volume, the volume in the left ventricular increases, then the myocytes, okay, so the, the myocytes here, okay, so they are also going to stretch. Okay, so there is going to be this myocyte stretching, and when this myocyte stretching is going to occur, there will be a more powerful contraction of the heart. Okay, so you might think that this is a very good idea, but no. Remember, if you again do remember that there was a limit to this. There's a limit to which these myocardial cells can be stretched. Beyond this limit, their contractility diminishes. Okay, so now just imagine that what the heart has done, what our body has done is that our body has increased the preload. Okay, so by increasing the preload, the left ventricular volume, more venous return is coming, and the left ventricular volume has increased and the myocardial cells have stretched. Okay, initially there was an increase in cardiac output because due to the stretching of the myocardial cells, the contraction of the heart increased. There was an increase, but after a particular limit, this thing vanished. Like after, as I told you just now, there is a limit to this at a after a particular point. Okay, so like for example, a rubber band. Okay, so a rubber band, you keep on stretching, you release it, it will come back with a snap. Okay, at a particular point, once you stretch it, it will become so much stretched that its contraction will absolutely diminish. So this is what happens here. So at a particular level, even after maximum this myocardial stretching also, the contractility is not going to increase anymore. Okay, so in that condition, just now think what is going to happen. The myocardium, the purpose for which the heart was filling, this left ventricle with blood, our body was filling the left ventricle with blood, was to increase the myocardial contractility. But after some time, the left ventricle is full of blood, how much it had to, even more amount of blood it got filled up with, but the myocardial contractility failed to increase. Now, what will happen to this excess amount of blood? Again, after a particular time, again, now, the beneficial effect of this is gone. Again, it has come back to its normal contractility. Again, it is contracting, because it's in the state of failure. Okay, so it is still, again, it is contracting, it's not contracting that effectively. Now, or entire blood which is present here, I'll just look at this diagram. This ventricle is full of blood. I am drawing another diagram here. So now what has happened is that this is your aorta. Okay, now some amount of this blood has been ejected out. Okay, now this much of blood is left inside the left ventricles. Remember, ideally what happens is that in normal individuals, so with each contraction, this ventricle, it empties. Okay, so this blood is pushed into the aorta, and again, it receives blood from the next phase, next diastole, when there is systole in the left atrium, and this left ventricle is in the phase of diastole, it gets filled up with blood. But now, since, in this heart failure, this cardiac output, okay, that is not sufficient, the pumping action of the heart is not sufficient, it has not been able to pump out the entire blood which was present in it. Okay, some amount of blood is still left behind. Now what will happen is that, in the next cycle, some more blood will come from the atrium to the ventricles. So this thing will repeat, and gradually there will be the back pressure. Can you see? Because every time this, normally this left ventricle is getting emptied, but in this case it is not getting emptied, rather there is accumulation of fluid, accumulation of blood in this left ventricle. So this accumulation of blood, it will put a back pressure on the left atrium, and again from the left atrium this back pressure will transmit to where? From where does the left atrium gets its blood supply? It gets its blood supply from the pulmonary veins. Okay, so this back pressure will be transmitted to the pulmonary veins. From the pulmonary veins, the pulmonary veins are originating from the lungs. Okay, so there will be a back pressure in the lungs, and then due to this excess of pressure inside the pulmonary vessels, as I have just discussed in the last lecture, excess of amount of pressure in the pulmonary vessels, there is going to be the exudation of fluid and RBCs from the pulmonary vessels inside the lungs, and there is going to be pulmonary edema. Okay, so this is what happens. Okay, so this is what happens. Initially, the preload has increased, but as a result of this increased preload, now there is increased back pressure, which has led to the transudation of fluid inside the alveoli, and it has caused alveolar edema. Okay, so this is one compensatory mechanism which we saw. Next compensatory mechanism, but this was a compensatory mechanism, but you saw that indirectly it has caused more harm because it has led to pulmonary congestion. And let us look at the myocardial contract. Now, what happens is that because of this volume and pressure overload. Okay, so this preload has increased and this volume and pressure overload. Now there is going to occur myocardial hypertrophy. What happens? The heart, our body thinks that by increasing the musculature, okay, so here in the heart muscles, the heart will be able to pump better. So by causing the myocardial hypertrophy, the heart muscles will be able to pump better. So, but what happens? Okay, fine. For some moment, because of this myocardial hypertrophy, the heart was pumping effectively. But after some time, what happens? Because of this myocardial hypertrophy, the vessels, the walls of the myocardium has hypertrophied. There is increased oxygen demand. The oxygen demand has increased. Okay, and then again, it will lead to what is called as the cardiac remodeling. I'll just tell you about cardiac remodeling later. So cardiac remodeling occurs, myocardial hypertrophy occurs, and indirectly it produces increased oxygen demand, and again it is going to worsen the condition further. Okay, so what else occurs? Myocardial remodeling, I told you. Increased preload, I told you how it is causing pulmonary congestion and pulmonary edema. Okay, next I told you about the sympathetic system stimulation. Sympathetic system stimulation can lead to peripheral vasoconstriction. Peripheral vessels get constricted. It leads to salt and water retention. Okay, and it also increases the heart rate, it increases the contractility, it increases the afterload, because sympathetic system, it will cause the constriction of all the blood vessels. Okay, so the pressure with which the heart has to pump, this pressure will increase, so the afterload will increase. This again will be deleterious to the heart. Okay, so this is what occurs in heart failure. The compensatory mechanisms, I told you about the compensatory mechanisms here. Okay, so next let me tell you about the right. So now you tell me that I'll tell you during management. So I hope so you all have understood by this time. So what our heart tries to do and how actually it is worsening the condition further. Okay. So as I told you, let me just sum it up once more. There is reduced cardiac output. Okay, the cardiac compensatory mechanisms. Okay, so that is causing reduced cardiac. So what happens? The cardiac compensatory mechanisms, they try to increase the myocardial contractility by the Frank-Starling law. Okay, how do they do it? They increase the left ventricular filling pressure, but by this indirectly, it is causing an increase in the pulmonary venous pressure. It is causing pulmonary congestion and exudation of fluid in the lungs. Okay, the next, what did I tell you? I told you that there is an increase in the sympathetic activity, sympathetic stimulation. Okay, so this sympathetic stimulation causes the venous constriction, causes the arterial constriction. Since the veins will constrict, what is going to happen? Venous constriction, this will increase the preload, isn't it? So it will cause right ventricular failure. And what about the arteries? If they start constricting, what it will do? If there will be arterial constriction, then there is going to be increased afterload. Okay. And another mechanism, what I told you, there is also going to be the activation of the RAS. Okay, so activation of RAS, this also causes vasoconstriction. And because due to the activation of RAS, there can be the accumulation of sodium and water in our body. Okay, so ultimately, because of all these mechanisms, there is going to be chamber hypertrophy, there's going to occur myocardial remodeling. Because I told you, myocardial hypertrophy, myocardial remodeling is going to occur. Okay, and there is going to be increased left ventricular filling pressure, decreased stroke volume. Okay, so these are the different problems which will start. This is the pathophysiology of heart failure. Next, let us come to the different types of heart failure. Okay, so first let us talk about there are many types of heart failure. So first I shall tell you about the acute and chronic heart failure. Acute chronic heart failure. Then heart failure, one type of heart failure that is called as heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. Another heart failure is there, heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. So this is one type of heart failure. Another type of heart failure is what is called as your low output heart failure. Another type is called as the high output heart failure. This I shall tell you. There are many other types also. First, let us discuss about these three. So acute heart failure, it's a rapid onset. Okay, so it is a new like the patient has presented to you first time with heart failure, or the patient had a heart failure, suddenly his heart failure has worsened. Okay, so it has acute decompensated heart failure. There is a sudden reduction in the cardiac output, and the patient has come to you with a very low BP, systemic hypotension without peripheral edema. And this best examples of this is that when the patient, AMI, acute myocardial infarction patients, they usually present with this acute heart failure. Okay, what is chronic heart failure? Chronic heart failure, it develops gradually. Okay, so here usually the patient doesn't present to us with hypotension, sudden fall in BP. Usually in this chronic heart failure, the arterial pressure is well maintained, but these patients, they often develop edema. Okay, so edema accumulates. So in these, you can see chronic heart failure mainly in the patients of, multivalvular disease. Okay, so or in the patients, mainly the multivalvular disease patients or dilated cardiomyopathy patients, they develop chronic heart failure, right? So next is based on the left ventricular ejection fraction. Now look at, I told you the cardiac output, the ejection fraction. So look at this heart failure, P for preserved, E ejection fraction. And look at this heart failure, this is R for reduced ejection fraction. So when it is preserved ejection, remember if you find out that the ejection fraction in the echo reports, if you find it's written more than equal to 50%, we say that the heart failure is, the ejection fraction is normal, it's having a preserved ejection fraction. Whereas if it is less than equal to 40%, so then we say it is having a reduced ejection fraction. Okay, and if it is between 40 to 50%, we say that it is a mid-range ejection fraction. Mid-range, called as the mid-range ejection fraction. Okay, so this is all about it. Next, come to the low output and the high output heart failure. So this I have told you in the beginning only. Low output is with a low cardiac output. Most of the heart failures, they come under this category only: ischemic heart diseases, hypertension, cardiomyopathy, valvular heart diseases. Whereas in high output heart failure, the heart output is normal, but it is not able to meet the metabolic demands of the tissues. Like, for example, anemia, pregnancy, thyrotoxicosis, hyperthyroidism. Okay, so this is about your high output heart failure. Okay, next let us talk about the another one, that is your left-sided heart failure, right-sided heart failure, and biventricular failure. Let us first talk about the left-sided heart failure, which is the most common type. So left-sided heart failure, as just now I had told you, shown you the example, so the preload, okay, so this is increasing. Okay, so the, the vessels are the ventricles, okay, they are getting filled up with blood, but they are not able to eject the entire blood into the aorta. Some remains. Next cycle like this, the blood keeps on accumulating, and this creates a back pressure, right? And ultimately, because it is creating a back pressure, you can see the pressure in the left atrium, left atrial pressure is going to increase. Your pulmonary veins, the pressure in the pulmonary veins, so that is going to increase, and there is going to occur pulmonary congestion, pulmonary edema. Okay, so these are features of left ventricular heart failure, or left heart failure, left-sided heart failure. Then what do you understand by the right-sided heart failure or right ventricular failure? Right ventricular failure, right heart sided heart failure. So here what happens, this back pressure, obviously right-sided heart failure, it can be, there is one type, most of the right-sided heart failure occurs because of left-sided heart failure. How? Because you can see this increased pressure in the pulmonary vein. So ultimately it is transmitted to the lungs. Okay, there occurs pulmonary congestion in the lungs, and the blood, in the lungs comes from where? From the pulmonary artery, isn't it? So here is your pulmonary artery. So the pulmonary artery gets blood from where? From the right ventricle. If you do remember, right atrium, right ventricle to pulmonary artery, and from the pulmonary artery to the lungs, lungs to the pulmonary veins, and veins to left atrium, isn't it? So gradually this pressure, it gets transmitted from left ventricle to left atrium, from left atrium to lungs, then from lungs to the right ventricle, from the right ventricle to the right atrium. So gradually this back pressure, it gets transmitted to the right ventricle, and there occurs the right ventricular failure also. Okay, but this is only one of the cause of right ventricular failure. There can be other causes of right ventricular failure also, that is called as cor pulmonale. Cor pulmonale is your right ventricular failure without left ventricular failure. That is, matlab, it's not because of left ventricular failure. That I'll just take a separate topic on this on cor pulmonale. But anyhow, remember about right heart failure, that right heart failure, it occurs when there is excess fluid, behind the failing right ventricle. So, there is excess amount of fluid behind the right failing ventricle, and there is a reduction in the right ventricular output. The right ventricle is not able to pump blood into the pulmonary artery. Okay. And what do you understand by biventricular failure? Biventricular failure, very simple, both right and left. Okay, so both of the ventricle, there is failure of both of the ventricle. Okay, so disease processes affecting both the ventricles, like ischemic heart disease, dilated cardiomyopathy, or as I told you, the first it is affecting the left ventricle, and gradually it comes to the right ventricle also. Both the ventricles get affected. Okay, so these are the another classification of heart failure. Okay, so we have got one more, in fact, two more classification of heart failure. That is one which is called as the forward heart failure and backward heart failure, another systolic heart failure and diastolic heart failure. First, let us talk about the forward heart failure and the backward heart failure. Forward heart failure and the backward heart failure. So with this only we'll be ending our class. Next class, we shall talk about the causes and the stages and the clinical manifestations. Okay. So forward heart failure and the backward heart failure, systolic heart failure and the diastolic heart failure. Okay. So forward heart failure and backward heart failure. So what is forward heart failure? Forward heart failure, you just think like, what is happening is that the blood, okay, so from the heart, from the left ventricle, where does it go? Into the aorta. Okay, so this is a forward. Can you see from the left ventricle, the blood is going into the aorta. From the aorta, it is going to the different organs. Okay, so the blood is reaching the different organs. So if there is decreased cardiac output, so if the cardiac output is decreased, okay, and there is inadequate perfusion of the organs, this is what is called as forward heart failure. Okay, there is poor renal perfusion and poor perfusion. Okay, this is your forward. Matlab, forward side, there is a failure. Forward, matlab, from the ventricles to the aorta, there is a failure, forward heart failure. Okay, and what do you understand by backward heart failure? So backward heart failure means the cardiac output is normal, but there is, the accumulation of blood in this left ventricle, which is transmitted to the left atrium, and then it is transmitted to the lungs. Okay, so like this, there is back pressure which is going on from the left atrium to, you can see now, forward means what? Forward matlab from the right atrium, right ventricle, pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, left atrium, left ventricle, aorta. This is your forward cycle. Backward cycle means, just see, as I told you, left ventricle to left atrium to pulmonary veins to your pulmonary artery to right ventricle to right atrium. Okay, so this is your backward, right? So this backward heart failure, there is normal cardiac output, but there is pulmonary and systemic venous congestion. Okay, so this there is congestion in these pulmonary vessels, backward pressure, there is congestion in pulmonary vessels, and there is congestion in the systemic blood vessels. Okay, so next come to the systolic and diastolic. So very important, systolic heart failure. From the name only you can understand there is some abnormality in the ventricular contraction. The ventricle is not contracting. In these cases, systolic heart failure, the ejection fraction is usually less than 40%. Okay, and what is diastolic heart failure? Diastolic, again, from the name only you can understand the heart is not able to relax properly. Okay, there is impaired ventricular relaxation. Because of this, the ventricle is not relaxing properly. Therefore, the filling of the heart with blood that takes place during diastole. Na? So what happens is that the filling of the heart that is not taking place properly. Okay, so there is the reduced filling of the heart. There is reduced filling of the heart. There is going to be diastolic dysfunction. Okay, So now the diagnosis of, here there is mainly increased ventricular stiffness due to which the ventricles are not filling up properly. Now you can ask, well, how will you diagnose a diastolic heart failure? Okay, so in diastolic heart failure, that is mainly you can find it out, on basis of three features. First, you will find signs of heart failure. The patient will come to you and complain of dyspnea, difficulty in breathing. Then when you check the left ventricular systolic function, that is when you check the ejection fraction, you'll find the ejection fraction is normal. And using the echocardiography, in the echo, that will clearly say you that there is a diastolic left ventricular dysfunction. That means the heart is not filling up properly during diastole. Diastolic left ventricular filling, dysfunction, or left ventricular dysfunction. This you can find in echo. So this is how you will make a diagnosis of diastolic heart failure. Okay. So there are certain conditions, which can predispose to diastolic heart failure, like ischemia, left ventricular hypertrophy, hypertension. Okay, hypertension is one of the most important causes of diastolic heart failure. Okay, so hypertension, aortic stenosis. Okay, so these things can predispose to diastolic heart failure. Okay, so anyhow, the symptoms, so anyhow, you'll get it same only, whether it is diastolic or systolic, you're going to get a, dyspnea and all, but mainly on echo, you can find out whether the heart problem, there is problem in the contraction of the heart, or whether there is problem in the filling of the heart. Okay, so this is all for today. So just go through it. Any doubts, you all can ask me.